Hi there and welcome. My name is Jarrad Treger and you're listening to JETBLACK Music Industry Talk. The very first of this podcast series, this is our first episode. I'm sure you'll hear that along the way a couple of times, in fact. I'm super excited to share some information with you, chat to some innovative and interesting people within the music industry, and just talk about topics that we feel are relevant. This is certainly not a workshop or a course, or we are not teachers of any kind. We're simply people working in the music industry, and this is an opportunity for us to not only share our knowledge and talk about relevant topics, but also to learn from each other and just capture that conversation and share it with you along the way. I went online to look for podcasts similar to what I'm doing. And I think what I struggled with most was a lot of the topics and people that they were talking to were very specific to a territory, which admittedly we are too. Our audience will be mostly South Africa, as that's where we're based, although we do work with and partner with a lot of people in overseas markets. That is our perspective and where we're coming from. The other thing that I found was that people's motive, what was the reason for them doing the podcast? Did they want to gain popularity of their own career? I think people are just scared to share their intellectual property and their knowledge and chat about important things and put themselves up for criticism. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to chat about all sorts of things, all topics related to the music industry, with a little bit of a focus on electronic music, and certainly coming from the perspective of South Africa. And that brings us to our first podcast. And a guest that we are bringing on today is an old friend of mine. We've known each other a long time in both business and we've had some good times along the way too. So to bring on today a stalwart of the music industry in South Africa, we'd like to welcome onto the show Shaun Duvet. So we'd like to welcome someone I know fairly well, and we'll get to know him on this podcast. Shaun Duvet, our first guest. Shaun, you're here on my very, very first podcast. How you doing?
Good, Jarrad. How are you? It's nice to be on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. It's good to have you. So, I mean, I'd like to just introduce everyone to you. Maybe tell them a little bit about you yourself.
Sure.
How you started out and where you are in the music industry right now.
Okay, no problem. I mean, in a nutshell, I think spans back about 25 years, probably. I started out like most people who loved electronic music, like as a DJ in my parents' house, just mixing records and kind of figuring it out, I guess the process of mixing. There was an old dodgy turntable that my dad used to have, and on a tape deck, and I used to mix records into tape deck, and then just fell in love with it. I grew up in Johannesburg, where in around Sydenham, Orange Grove, which was kind of a good hub for electronic music. House Africa was down the road from me, so I used to go there and buy records from the likes of G-Force and Vinnie Da Vinci. Probably sold me my first record. And I just kind of fell in love with electronic music then. And there was a club up the road called 206, which I was too young. I mean, I was about 15 years old, 16 years old, and I just used to go there and try to sneak in. And eventually I got in, and then I met Alan, the owner, who in turn then turned out to be a very close friend of mine. And from there, I kept on playing and bugging him to start playing at the club. And then, one night he said to me, all right, I'll come play in the back room. There was a little space for about 30 people in a little bar there. And, and I started developing and started playing. And then my friends started coming. And then eventually I said, okay, give me a night. And then I took on a night. And then things progressed. So I guess from bedroom DJ, I started promoting. Then I started booking other DJs. Then I fell in love with the marketing side of it. I then studied a marketing degree for a little bit. I then traveled abroad. I lived in London for a while, did a lot of like pirate radio and like club gigs, just kind of feeding my way through the industry. Then came back to South Africa, released a couple of like mixed CDs, continued DJing, opened up like a marketing agency. So between marketing and kind of the club scene was where I found my love, so to speak. And then just started.
I mean, there's more. It continues.
It continues.
You've built a little bit of an empire here.
That's the short background. I mean, to speed it up, basically from there, I started doing more club shows, and then the big EDM, for lack of a better word, explosion happened at around 2009 or so, like when deadmau5 was the biggest act in the world. I can't believe that was over 10 years ago. And basically teamed up with my partner and good friend Tony Feldman, who comes from a theatre background. And I said, we got to bring this guy to the country. And, after a lot of negotiating and back and forth, we toured deadmau5, and that kind of opened up like the world of like big dance music shows in this country. And then from there moved on to tour the likes of Skrillex, Swedish House Mafia, Avicii, Cole Cox, Steve Aoki, Nicky Romero, all on single kind of artist size shows, up to about 30,000 people. And then like the market in the country was wanting a festival. And at that point, through the touring via Cole Cox's team, actually met a good friend who worked closely with Cole and kind of ran all of his stuff with Ultra as well, and introduced us to the Ultra Miami guys. And that was 8 years ago. And we talked about bringing the festival to the country. That was a good couple of years negotiation. And then from there, brought the festival into the country and have now just concluded the 7th show. And within all of that, with my agency, have created and partnered with Corona to create the Corona Sunsets Festivals, which we've done 8 successfully. And I have a number of other businesses, but everything is about, I guess, bringing people together, whether it be in the club, in the festival, or the event environment.
Cool. That's quite a history. Just a little history lesson. I think the first time I went to a nightclub was with you, and I don't know if you remember. It was the Fringe in Cape Town. I think we were. In Cape Town. Cape Town. I think we were about 15 years old. There's more to the story, but we'll leave it out.
Keep it in there.
Yeah. We'll tell everything. Nothing for next time.
Exactly.
I mean, I've got a few things. A few questions that maybe people would like to know. People that are maybe trying to get into the industry as music professionals, and they might just want to get some information from you. Firstly, have you ever worked in any other field besides music? Have you ever had another job?
Jeez, I think like if you, the very, very first job I ever did, I lasted 1 day doing it. Was like my dad got me like a job in like a paint store, like selling paint or something. Like I was 18, like it was my first proper job. I literally lasted 1 day and turned around and walked out. But no, other than that,
sold paint, Shaun.
Yeah. Other than that, no, I worked, in bars and clubs and restaurants as a waiter, as a barman, so I was always around it in some kind of way, shape, or form, basically,
And did you have any kind of like mentor in the music industry, somebody that you took advice from, looked up to?
Well, I think yes, I would say that Alan Freeman, initially from 206, who kind of gave me my first club gig, was definitely a mentor for me for many years, and still someone I hold very closely and dearly to my heart. I learned a lot from him. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad that you can take from anyone and everyone. But Alan taught me not to be scared, be fearless, go out there and kind of like follow your dreams and conquer it. And Alan's just amazing at that. He always has been. So, he was always someone, and still do, that I look up to today. Another great mentor for me was Josh, the Milk Bar Kid. You know,
Yeah.
his we lived together for many years, and he was just a great mentor for me in terms of, I guess, music and life. He's a real music lover, and kind of the depth and the history that he had, you know, kind of to the music was just like, you know, like not anyone I've ever encountered, you know. So yeah, he was another one. And yeah, and then I guess through time and through, you know, experience and through the people that you meet, you know, you get inspired all the time. You know, there's DJs that inspire me, there's friends that inspire me. But I think all in all, you know, in my deepest heart, I've always wanted to be involved in this. I mean, it goes as far back and as cheesy as this may sound. I think it was in like standard 1 or standard 2, you know, I've probably been like 8 or 9 years old, you know. I'll never forget it, you know. It's profound, in fact, that Mr. Parker, he was the teacher, you know, and he went around the classroom and he like asked the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I literally put my hand up and I said I wanted to be a DJ. I think, you know, at that point I didn't really know what it was. It wasn't like DJs today, of course, you know, but I think it was more the idea of like my parents used to take us to school, like listening in the car, like, oh, that guy's cool, playing all the music, and you know. So I don't know. I guess it's always been there. It's something I've always loved, and yeah, I haven't really thought about anything else. But at the same time, if I look at what I do today, it's the silver lining to everything I do. It's so, you know, I'm involved in quite a few different businesses, but all of them are attached to the world of eventing and DJs very specifically for me.
I think just keeping up with how fast the industry moves and how it changes and evolves is tough, and you need to adapt to it. And it's funny how your kind of your goals change as you grow as a person. Your idea of the career that you wanted is very different to where you're at, which is not a bad thing. Just, you know, just different.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, like if you're going to have you know, in today's world, you can't really have a complete one-dimensional approach to anything, really, because there's just so many different facets to it all, and there's just so many different chapters of information coming in from different sources all the time that, you know, you got the world at your fingertips, and in order to stay ahead of it all, you've got to be agile, you've got to be open to it all, and yeah, you've got to keep up with the changes and the times in order to stay, you know, kind of relevant and to expand your business, but at the same time be careful not to lose sight of who you are, what your core goals are, and all the other peripherals are essentially, you know, part of that at the end, you know, in the end. So
and that might be the perfect cue to enter the elephant into the room and reach the topic at hand. You know, obviously one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on here is to chat about the obvious, coronavirus and how it's affecting. I mean, it's not just affecting the entertainment industry; it's affecting all industries. But you know, while we're discussing how to be agile and how to adapt to a disruptive world, nobody's quite got the answers for what's just happened.
No,
and I think it's confused. It's confused everyone.
It's confusing times. There's no doubt about it. I think, you know, there's a lot to be taken out of what's going on. There's a lot to be taken out of, you know, what's coming. You know, so I think that, you know, if you have to try to be, I don't know, systematic about it in some kind of way, the reality is that, you know, our industry, the industry of bringing people together from hospitality and eventing, was globally hit hard the first, you know, and the hardest. You know, we literally had the rug pulled from underneath us in one fell swoop, and we're essentially told to, you know, can't open our businesses and we need to stop trading effectively as of now. You know, and you know, how does that look, and how do we manage that, and how do we deal with that? I think solidarity is important. Sharing information is important. Understanding how others are handling this tragedy is important. So communicating is critical, you know. From all of my businesses, as much as they as much as they are all different and they have their own kind of cost centers and focus points, they're all linked to this industry. So they have all closed down effectively all at once. So it's been quite interesting to see, being quite interested to see and how to manage each of the different businesses and how each of the different businesses, kind of react and deal with what's going on. Some have got a longer term forecast and strategy, so there's essentially more fuel in the tank to keep things going for longer, with the intention of when things go right, it picks back up again. Some, have got heavy staff, a staff contingent to it, both casual and full time. So, there's priorities in taking care of them, and how do you take care of them? Government's been very, very useful. I must take, my hats off to Ramaphosa and the team. The data that they've had from around the world has been helpful to them, and I think he's moved quite quickly and swiftly.
He's acted fast, which is great.
He's acted fast, which is good. Look, where things currently stand with regards to staffing and TERS and all of that stuff and UIF, it's all coming, that information. So how to manage staffing is quite a challenge, obviously. Dealing with things like landlords is quite a challenge as well. But if you've got a good relationship at the end of the day, they understand, if you can't trade, you can't pay rent, but they've also got their deals with the banks. So I think at the end of the day, everything comes down to relationships. At the end of the day, the reality is that we can't, because of social distancing, we can't, be in the same room. But all of this comes down to connection. It's the connection with your staff. It's the connection with your teams. It's the connection with your consumers. It's the the connection with your landlords. All of these types of things. And how do you communicate with them and collectively come out with the best possible decision for yourself and for your business and for them in the end? And it's very challenging, and it's very testing and trying times. All I can talk is on my own. For myself, I have a nightclub, a bar, and a restaurant, and as of immediate effect, I've had to cancel all my leases. I have over 100 staff, which at the moment, we are working through, and how to give them the best that we possibly can with the assistance of things like UIF and the government, because we just can't, unfortunately, be a breadline for these guys forever without any income coming in, obviously.
I think there's a natural empathy because, the world's in this together. I do think we face different challenges in South Africa. And I think that's part of the reason that Ramaphosa acted so quickly, based on our just, our level of living, as well as, the health and the infrastructure that we have. We needed to act pretty fast on that. However, our economy, how it's going to hold up, when you look across to international companies, such as when Glastonbury cancelled and Live Nation's share price that day just dropped 13%. This is a global pandemic. It's
absolutely,
it's affecting the world. So while there's that natural empathy, there's everyone's trying to kind of adapt and figure out a way to live, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I
think on that note, what the industry has done very well, from what I can see, is band together and speak to consumers. Just from the ticketing side, I think that Howler did a fantastic job on a local level. And, blogs like Resident Advisor also went out to the public, from their own accord, and went to every ticket holder and explained the process to them, that the promoters, at the end of the day, the shows are run off the ticket sales. That's 99% of, in fact, 100% of all promoters out there at the end of the day. So look, there's two sides to the story. One, is that, the money isn't yours as a promoter, to be honest, until the show is over and everyone has been paid, if that makes sense. So you shouldn't effectively be spending this money if you haven't got it if that makes sense, to run and put in a show, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
you
need to exactly. No, exactly. I mean, it's just it's wishful thinking most of the time, and that's why the communication that went out from the resident advisors of the world and the howlers of the world, explaining things to the ticket holders to say the shows that have been postponed, have faith in the promoters to come back. You know what I mean, and keep your money invested with them as opposed to getting a refund on that money. Because once the refund comes back, it's very unlikely that that promoter is going to be able to kind of get back on his feet and bring a show to any time soon. And then when the market gets unstable and everyone's saying, oh, I want to see this act, I want to see this act, or why don't we get this, why don't we get that? At the end of the day, if nobody supports it and nobody supports the promoters when they're down, you're not going to get those shows. So I think just after that message, I believe it was a very good move. And I think that from what I can see, the market reacted pretty well to it, and they've been like very supportive of it. Again, being the first industry hit so hard with all of this stuff, the industry was polarized the most with it, and I see a lot of like festivals have gone out there, and I mean, I had to postpone a show. I mean, ironically, we had the Corona Sunsets Festival, which was this last weekend. It should have been, and I've postponed that show, and a new date will be coming soon, and I'll announce it shortly. But then there's others that have cancelled outright and still kept the ticket money. I mean,
there's a lot of different situations. I mean, just to backtrack a little, there was obviously a festival in Cape Town that before the announcement was made, they had set up and they'd built their festival, and it was literally the first case was announced maybe a day before their festival was starting, and there was this pressure from them to cancel. And at first you kind of you look at it and you go, well, maybe they should. Whose responsibility is it? But at the end of the day, I think people need to understand what it takes to one, put on an event. And I'm not saying you don't do what's right, but if the country's saying, hey, you can run an event right now, and you've literally booked this event, it's not like you're not cancelling it 2 months before. Exactly. The term force majeure, like if something is an act of God, I think just to touch on this, I think a lot of people don't realize that event insurance will not cover that.
Yeah, absolutely. Event insurance, every single insurer in the world, not one of them covers for this disease. It's a communicable disease. So even over and above the force majeure or an act of God, this is specifically like a loophole that the insurers would say have put in there, but it's basically across contracts that should a communicable disease happen like that, that they're not covered. So to your point on that festival that they didn't postpone and they went ahead, if you had to ask me, what would I do in those guys' position? It's difficult to say because I'm not. However, keeping in mind that, to your point, there was a lot of smoke in terms of like everybody talking about it. There was a lot going on. Like it all happened so quickly, but
it was the August the week before.
Exactly.
And there were other festivals on that weekend. And even to that point, most certainly, like even if event insurance did cover it, they still wouldn't have covered them because there was no announcement made.
Yeah, exactly. So I probably would have gone ahead, to be perfectly honest with you. I would have done probably the same thing as them, It all happened so quickly. Again, to just cancel a festival the day before, the financial ramifications of that is just massive. And
you'll never come back. You'll never come back. How do you come back from that?
Yeah, exactly. So I think like when it comes to, again, Ramaphosa acting like swiftly and concisely with everything, it's, it all happened, so.
We moved faster than most. So for anyone who did anything before, if you followed procedure and did everything that you were asked to do, I think it's fair.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And yeah, look, I mean, it was almost, unfortunately to say that it was almost inevitable that there was a case that came out of that,
which subsequently
waiting for that.
Apparently he was no longer contagious by the time he reached South Africa, just for interest sake.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's happened since.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess what can I say? That's that. But how do we move forward here is the question.
For sure. I think everyone's trying to now. I mean, it does make you realize how volatile and you are, and how things can happen and change overnight, literally.
Exactly.
And now, like, everyone's just trying to adapt, and there's a lot of things happening around the world. Like Australia have set up a website called "I Lost My Gig." Gemma,
what's that about?
Literally just people getting together online and contacting each other, and artists mainly, and seeing of ways they can collaborate.
That's cool.
On a completely different tip, Gemma, which is the collection, the royalty collection society in Germany, has created a fund with $43 million. People are definitely, trying to help artists and get involved in the music and the creative industries.
Right.
But I don't know. In South Africa, we need to adapt in a huge way. Everyone's obviously trying to benefit of streaming. I'm not sure if it's the right answer. I think it's a bit flooded. I don't know. No one really has the answers as to where to go just yet. But
absolutely. Although the streaming is the solution. It is absolutely flooded. And how do you take it out of there? How do you
do something different? I guess.
How do you beat yourself out the clutter? And I think that we almost need to. Yeah, we got to look at consolidation. We got to look at like bigger layers and levels of support where we can, and just tap into all the networks we have to try and see like what's available and how it's going on. And, I know it's difficult to do it on a local level, but I think you'd be surprised at the strength of our community of dance music, and if we had to put something together, I think we'd be pleasantly impressed and surprised by the support. It just needs to be presented correctly. I mean, if you take, the Beatport collective of what they've done through the Reconnect strategy, I think they've raised over $200,000, and that was literally over 24 hours. And that's just kind of DJs bringing in their streams. How do we do that?
There's been some amazing things happening on global levels. I mean, locally, for sure. I mean, Shimza and PH's house party, the response was amazing.
Yeah, excellent.
Black Coffee did a live stream. Obviously, it got crazy support. I think that was. I mean, you can't even say that's local. That's a global.
Yeah, exactly.
But how to approach the local market, and how do artists adapt? I've just recently seen, which is quite cool, an app called Basker. You get a code, and you can actually put a a thing to scan, snap scan. You can put a snap scan code in the corner of your screen, so people can literally donate to your stream.
Right.
But will people donate?
Well, you don't know until you try.
I guess.
Everybody needs to tap in and like give it a go. But I think the best results are going to be from like I say, consolidating with with artists and brands. I think don't forget, brands are also in this position right now. I think the reality is big brands have got budgets that they need to I guess that they need to tap into, because they need to communicate to their markets at the end of the day.
For sure.
So
I mean, do you think though that people that are at home, obviously people are missing being social and going out, but you'd need to engage with them in a bit of a different way, I don't know. You're in a different space when you're in your own home. You're in a different
Yeah.
mindset. So I guess you need to be engaged slightly differently to how you would be in a nightclub,
Yeah.
not hanging with your friends. So I think that's, I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah, totally. There's, yeah, I don't have the answers, to be honest with you, but I know that they are out there. And I think, like, again, just like communicating with the industry is what's important most. I think, it's a time where, like, it's such a cutthroat industry and business that generally, there's like angst between some DJs, like some promoters have got it in for one and not in for one another, but there's a lot of competition because it's such a tight and difficult business to actually make money out of it. So everybody holds their cards quite close to their chests. However, it's a time to share information, and I think that will help unlock a lot of potential. To be honest with you, so sharing information on insurance, sharing on information on how to manage staff, sharing information on how to handle postponed gigs, sharing information on how to refund tickets, when to refund tickets, how to communicate to consumers, how are others doing it,
I think online, this has brought people together. There's a lot of,
sure,
obviously, there's from free courses to, there's so much that you can find on the internet right now because of that natural, like, global empathy, and everyone's going through the same thing. So people definitely are coming together. And I mean, on the musical side, from artists' perspective, let's hope they're in the headspace to be creative, because there's no better time than to write music than when you've got no shows. This is your time to get in studio and really make something.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, like, I think that the reality of looking at bigger brands and, like, even government. I mean, looking at, like, arts and culture right now. Like, there is funds, and there are funds available, and there are budgets available to tell a message during this time. There's no doubt about it. Through all of these brands, through governments, and nobody can do anything else but streaming. And the reality of what we have over and above any other industry, although we were hit hardest from it, right? We have probably the most creative industry. So now is that chance to show that, and now to in turn monetize that, and and try and work out, kind of how to make that all happen, I guess.
Prepare for the boom that happens after the recession, I guess.
Something like that, yeah, exactly. Because the one thing for certain is, when this is all over, our industry will come back swinging the hardest. People are just going to want to get together and celebrate and enjoy themselves. So it's.
I guess it's just to make it through that. I mean, what do you think the knock-on effect will be? Do you we can't predict it, but how long?
Well, I mean, as a promoter, like, dealing and talking to, like, agents globally, speaking to some of the guys as to when they are, like, actually booking shows at the moment, they're looking in Q4 right now.
Wow.
They kind of, that's as far into the advance that they are, like, looking. So, and that's still undecided, to be honest with you. So,
do you think it'll be different? Do you think, like, budgets will be different? I mean, this is going to have a major effect on things moving forward. It's going to change things for a long time, and we're going to have to build.
Yeah, we're going to have to build. We're going to have to start the engines all up again, slowly build. I think that this time it's a good time to shed some weight, to kind of relook at the numbers. I mean, for the first time, for me in the past 10 days, I've never watched the rands and cents as closely as I have, and just looking at all the excess spending and where things can be cut. And it's a time from a business perspective to a combination of being ruthless, and also being realistic, and also taking into account kind of morals and ethics from the teams that you work with, and just seeing what it is that you can provide and what you can do. But it's a time to slim things down And everybody needs to take that same approach. And when
For sure.
the engines get running back up again, it'll take a while, I believe, for the momentum to get right, but I think it'll become like a steam train. It'll take some time, and slowly the engines will start moving. And then as it gets momentum, it's just going to like explode, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can imagine people, after when people come out, I don't think the next day people are going to be running and, let's party and all hold hands and get sweaty together, if you know what I mean. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned from a health perspective and like how to manage yourself, keeping distance, all of those things, So I think people are going to come out wiser. People are going to come out more subdued, but I don't know. I have no idea.
It certainly is going to build some resilience, and you're gonna have to tighten bolts, lose the weakest links, and have your essential strong team, so that when everything around you is ready, you can really power on.
Absolutely.
I think that's some good thought. To maybe leave that right there.
Sure.
I mean, is there anything else you'd like to say to anyone?
I think it's the two great pieces of, like, I don't know, mottos, so to speak, if you want to call it that, or not mottos, but two like great things which I'm keeping positive in my mind based on all of this, which is not only like you gig related or it's just more life related. One was discussed with me with Jarrad Treger, who's a very close friend and
of course
godfather to my kids and all of that stuff. So we're super close, obviously. And Jarrad's recently become very religious. Very, who lives in Jerusalem and he's religious Jew.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about it, and I love that stuff. I find it super interesting. And obviously there's different like notions and pieces of information that come out of the learnings of the Torah and all of that stuff. And obviously like people see it in different depths. But anyway, we were having this conversation, and there's a lot of information that like kind of goes over my head. But there was something that the head rabbi said, and like the message was translated to me in 3 simple words, which was "remember the future." And like it's just had such a profound like kind of like effect on me. Remember the future. Remember what's still to come. Remember there will be one. And I like that. So that's something for me that I like to take in. And then the second one came to me from Josh, actually, Giorgio, who, a mentor and very close friend, like I said, was also Hugh Masekela's manager for many, many years,
Yes.
And recently, as far back as last Saturday, in fact, was it last Saturday or the Saturday before, went to Hugh's gravestone. And, it's a monumental gravestone, considering, the stature of obviously of who Hugh was, and a very beautiful kind of gravestone. And, Josh sat there for some time, just spending time with him basically and asking questions. And he said to me, and he took the picture and he sent it to me, a praying mantis like landed on Hugh's stone, and Josh was looking at this mantis. Now, normally the mantis to people is like good luck, right?
Yeah.
But Josh Googled it like immediately, like what does it mean if you see a praying mantis? Thinking at that point that like Hugh sending him a message, because they were that close. And the exact description that came up was this: overwhelmingly in most cultures, the mantis is a symbol of stillness. As such, she is an ambassador from the animal kingdom, giving testimony to the benefits of meditation and calming our minds. An appearance from the mantis is a message to be still, go within, meditate, get quiet, and reach a place of calm. So, Josh took that as a kind of, a message from Hugh, from the animal kingdom, and translated it back to me. And yeah, I guess those are the 2 most beautiful pieces I'm taking out of this, and to keep me strong. And yeah, and that's
keep
kind
calm.
of
that's powerful.
Keep calm and move on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shaun, thanks so much for joining me on my first ever. I hope it comes out. Hope it comes out all right.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
We'll see from the feedback. Great. I mean, thanks. Hopefully, we'll have you on sometime again.
Lovely, Jarrad. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us today on my first podcast of JETBLACK Music Industry Talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure we'll get better along the way as we do more, speak to more people. We're going to try and keep this as regular as possible. Please do send us questions either on social media or feel free to email us on info@jetblack.co.za. Till next time.